Hello everyone, welcome back to the Novel Nook Book podcast. I'm your host, Tim Thomas, and today we are here to discuss the beloved book, Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And to help me discuss it, I have a guest with me today. He has gone to college, he has read a book before, he's familiar with the English language. His name is Tom Timothy. Hello Tim, glad to be here. Have you read this book? Nope. Oh, that's why you're here, though, is to explain to me and the audience what this book is about. There will be spoilers, so this is your spoiler warning. So let's start with the basics. What is this book about? It's a story where the Dark Lord type character won like 1,000 years ago. He's still alive. The sun is red, and ash just kind of falls all over the place. There's a lot of mist in the world, and there's one group of people called the Skad. They view the mist as dangerous. There's a lot of superstition behind the mist. But in reality, it's probably not dangerous, but maybe. There's this character called Vin. She's the main character. She's a part of this gang of terrible people, and she has the ability to soothe people, which is makes them more calm, makes them more trusting. It's part of this magic system called allomancy. And she goes to this one guy that she likes more than the rest of the people in the group, and she warns them that they messed with the wrong people, in chapter 1 or 2. And she's like, we gotta leave now. That guy rats her out to the boss. His name is Come On, and he beats her. Oh no, that's terrible. Yeah, but then this guy named Kelsier shows up, and he saves her, and he takes her to his own crew of people, I think, and then he kind of gets them all huddled around a table, and he's like, listen, I have a plan to kill the Lord Ruler, and they all think he's insane. I guess that doesn't make sense. You said he was 1,000 years old. So what, does he not age, but you can still hurt him? Could I kill this guy with a gun? I'll get to that, okay? I'll get to it. Now, he does convince them all on his plan, because he has this thing called the 11th Metal. Now, I mentioned that Ven was an allomancer, and basically allomancy is there's 10 magical metals, now maybe 11, and basically for example, they all have different abilities. So brass can make you soothe people. People can usually only burn one metal, and they're called mistings, but there are other people in the book, a group of people that can burn all 10, and they are called Mistborn. Interesting. Now, Kelsier, Vin, and the Lord Ruler are all Mistborn, and most people are mistings, but they're all called allomancers. That's what the magic system is called, allomancy. So anyone who can burn any metal is an allomancer. Now, Vin's role is to infiltrate higher society and kind of try to find out whatever she can, and she does this by going to balls and dances and parties. That's the opposite of who she is. Yeah, it's great for character development, and every book needs that. Yes, and a great example of that is around chapter 12, or even before that, she's already noticing that there's a difference between Kelsier's group and Kamon's group, where Kelsier's group seems more like a family, or what she imagines to be a family. And Kelsier even offers her money, and he's like, alright, you can just run away. You don't need to help us. You can do whatever you want, and I'm not gonna hold it against you. And she's like, yeah, I'll take the money, but I'm gonna stick around and just kind of see what happens. So already there's some kind of natural character growth happening. I think at the first ball she meets Elend, and he's the love interest of the book, and he's rich and stuff, and he's so boring. He's not other rich people. Okay, he reads books, and he doesn't like the Lord Ruler, and he's engaged. I mean, you say he's boring, but it seems like he has some stuff going on. Yeah, I just don't like it whenever I see his name on the page. I think that's one of the major problems of this book, is I don't really care for a lot of the side characters outside of this one guy named Sazed. He's kind of interesting, but everyone else I just don't really care about. Yikes, I heard that the author was really good at characterization and world building and just general things like that. And he is, mostly for the main characters in my opinion. For example, Vin, we already talked about her, but she also has this brother named Reen, and he abandoned her a long time ago, but throughout the entire book, she's remembering all these terrible lessons that he taught her. And I seriously thought he was gonna come back and be a reluctant ally, or maybe even just the full-blown antagonist of book 2. Thought? So he's dead? Yeah, he's dead. He was killed by these things called the Inquisitors, which are like these people with spikes in their eyes, and they have access to the magic system. I think they're mortal, and they're so edgy. They're so edgy. It's crazy. Is that because of the steel through the eyes? It's a little bit more than that. They're like the enforcers, and they like torture people and try to get information out of them. And the way they describe the bodies afterwards is a bit much. I'm not even score, but it just seems like an extreme escalation compared to what happened before, and just compared to what has happened during the book. Like there's a point where they kill Vin's dad. She has a dad? Yes, and her dad is like a highborn, and he had a child with a ska woman, and that child is Vin, obviously. And to also keep it simple, as I kind of mentioned before, the Scar are a group of repressed people. So the Lord Ruler finds out that the father has a kid with a Scar woman, and the Inquisitors they surround him and they tear him limb from limb. It just seems very cartoonish, I think is the best way to put it. Alright, now where were we in the plot? The balls and the dances. Right, so halfway through the book, I think, there's a character called Yelin, and they've been building up an army to fight back against the Lord Ruler, and he takes half the army and gets them all killed. What an idiot. Yeah, I don't think there's much of a point to it other than to get us to the low point of the book. I also think it's supposed to be a false low point, we think at that moment, the first time we read it, we were supposed to be oh, it can't get any worse than this, and it gets much worse. So for example, the Lord Ruler has a throne room, and Kelsier and his wife, I think her name was Mare, they break into the throne room, and this is years before the book started. So the two of them broke into the throne room, and they were both captured. So basically, it seemed like a setup. Kelsier was for sure they could do this without any issues, and the enemy was there waiting for them, and they didn't tell anyone. And then they were thrown into the pits of Hathsin, I think. That's where they mine the metals. And what happens to Mare is she actually dies in the pits of Hathsin, and even while she's dying in Kelsey's arms, he still thinks she's the traitor. He still loves her. There's a lot of conflicted feelings. And later it was revealed that the Lord Ruler just used some sort of advanced form of the magic system to sense that they were coming and caught them. Oh, that's tragic. Yeah, it was a real tearjerker. Anyways, before we find that out, I think Vin and Kelsey go to the throne room. They break in. Kind of a similar thing happens where the Inquisitors are there. One of the Inquisitors fights Vin, hurts her. Then Doxson comes and saves her. Now Doxson is just one of the minor characters I don't really care too much about. He's one of Kelsier's best friends, but him and Vin do have a nice moment there. And after that, Vin and Kelsier are having a good deep chat on, I don't know, somewhere. And Vin is experimenting with the magic system, and she finds out that Mayor, his wife, didn't betray them at all. Now, I do have a little bit of a nitpick. Oh no. Now, I realize from Kelsey's point of view that there's no way that the Lord Ruler should have known that they were coming. But my question is, did Mayor also think he was the traitor? Because if she wasn't the traitor, did she also think he was the traitor? I think there may have been something on that, but I'm not really sure. And then, if she was the traitor, why would she also be thrown into pits? Why would she also just die in the pits? That part doesn't make much sense to me, but maybe there was a couple lines in the book that explain it, why the Lord Ruler would also throw in Mare. That part just doesn't make sense to me. Well, that wasn't so bad. And I think Kelsier is very overrated. Oh. Yeah, I just didn't connect with him as much as other people seem to. I don't really care for witty characters all that much. I do like that he was very desperate to win. He was driven by a vengeance of sorts, and he was just. I think that was the part I related to the most, was just how he was so desperate to beat the Lord Ruler. But I just don't seem to connect with him personally like other people do. Okay, fair enough. Now afterwards, Kelsier and Vin have a nice emotional conversation on the rooftop. And Kelsier dies. Yeah. He dies. I think a little bit before this, I forgot to mention that Kelsier did go to the mines and just completely destroy them. And then the day of his death, he fights an Inquisitor in front of everybody. He's trying to save people who are about to get hanged or something. And he fights an Inquisitor and actually manages to kill an Inquisitor, which impresses everybody. And then the Lord Ruler shows up and kills him, and then Kelsier becomes like a martyr for the people. I think that's like the low point of the book. Now he gets this creature called a Kandra, and what Kandras are they like shape-shifting kind of like creatures where they can take the bones of a dead person or animal and become them, I think. And they don't get all their memories, they just do a lot of research on the person to intimidate, or not intimidate them, but kind of like become them, impersonate them. And what a Kandra does is, on the orders of Kelsier, he takes Kelsier's corpse and becomes Kelsier, shows up in public, and now just everybody thinks that Kelsier is some godlike figure that came back to life. Interesting. This is basically just to like inspire the people and kind of get them to revolt against the Lord Ruler in like some way. I think that's what it's supposed to be. So a little bit later, Ven gets captured by an Inquisitor, and the Inquisitor taunts her, saying that like, oh, your brother Reed, he's dead. So my theory about him coming back to be an ally or a villain or whatever, not gonna happen, I guess. And there's like some other plot point I forgot to mention where Marsh, who was Kelsier's brother, presumably died under the Inquisitors, and presumably it gave out a bunch of secret info on Kelsier and the others to the Inquisitors, because the Inquisitors never fail, like that's their thing. But it turns out, like, no, he is alive, but they made him become an Inquisitor. I don't think they told us how that happened, but nonetheless, Marsh is an Inquisitor now. Interesting. Ven then goes before the Lord Ruler, and all that crap with her dad happens. And then while she's before the Lord Ruler, she starts to burn the 11th medal. Now, I think Kelsier gave her the 11th medal. I don't really remember how she got it, but probably through Kelsier. And what happens is she sees, like, I think, like, 2 different avatars of the Lord Ruler. Like, I think in public, when Ven saw Lord Ruler, he was, like, a middle-aged type warrior dude. But now he's, like, a shriveled up old man. I think you see, like, the warrior dude on his left, and like a younger version of him on his right. I think like it's very vague, and I'm getting some minor details wrong. But that's kind of like what happened. Now my mind was like, what if she attacked the younger version of him, and that like somehow hurt him? Then the next page she thinks about doing that, and the page after that she tries and fails. This shows to me that Brandon Sanderson knows how to manipulate the reader, or at least me, because in the beginning of the book, he puts in the idea that the 11th medal will absolutely kill the Lord Ruler, and then we see a younger, tangible almost version of the Lord Ruler, and then because of the new magic system, anything goes, and then it just doesn't work out. If it were me, I'd probably just cruise right along and just figure everything works and is consistent. Yeah, that was me for a while. Then I started understanding how the magic system was working. And then it got more confusing because the Lord Ruler kind of has a second magic system, and he combines the 2 magic systems to like make himself immortal and to live long, I think. Is that a cop-out though? Maybe the second magic system was talked about at least one time before, and like that was the setup, and this is the payoff. I don't really remember it because I don't remember every line of the book. Fair enough. And it gets way more confusing. So, way back before the book started, Ven got an earring from her mom after her mom killed her younger sister. The earring during the battle with the Lord Ruler gets ripped off, and then all of a sudden, like, the mist comes in and helps kill the Lord Ruler. And, like, the whole mist is a big question mark because it just hasn't been touched upon too much. So I also hear that there's another villain. I think so. Like there's this thing called the Deepness that Lord Ruler defeated 1,000 years ago. So like the Lord Ruler was a good guy, but then became a bad guy, I guess. And I guess the Deepness is coming back, and I think like the Deepness is like the remnants of, or like the mist is like the remnants of the Deepness. But there might be more to it. I don't know. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, I think it would have been cooler if there was like a historical villain that we just like never saw. But truth be told, I'm just gonna wait it out and just see what happens. So the mist was bad to the Scar, but not really. And then the mist defeat or help defeat the Lord Ruler, and then you think the mist is the deepness? Yeah, that's my guess. That's my guess. So I heard Brandon Sanderson has like one weakness, and that's his prose, his like descriptions and such. What do you think about that? So what's next then? Well, the Lord Ruler is gone, and he was like the sole ruler of like this, I think the whole planet for like 1,000 years. And so now that he's gone, I'm curious to see what'll happen to like the governments and stuff of the world. Like what will happen? I heard that the second book isn't as good, but I'm still excited to see what happens. So rank this amongst like the other Cosmere books. I don't know. I've only read two of the books, and so I think it's better than Elantris, but not as good as Warbreaker. I personally really enjoyed Warbreaker, even though it's like one of his bad books. Alright, well, do you have anything to promote? Nope. Cool, thank you for being on the show this week. That was The Final Empire. At 136,000 words, we gave it a strong recommend. Join us next week where we talk about Tress of the Emerald Sea. And by we, I mean me. It'll just be me and no one else.